Welcome to Heartbreak Revealed. Discover real stories of wives' betrayals and shocking twists. Hit subscribe button and let's get to our story. I never liked playing cards. Some of my friends tried to teach me poker when I was in college, but I could never get the hang of it. I could never bother learning which hand beats which or how to play Texas Hold'em or whatever it's called. It just wasn't of any interest to me. I got tired of giving away money to my ruthless friends and stopped playing altogether. My wife Rachel, however, loved playing poker and was exceptionally good at it. She played in a few local tournaments and did quite well, but she usually played with a regular group at the home of her friends, Jake and Anna, who had a nice townhouse in the suburbs. Notice I said her friends. Rachel had known them since college, and Anna was her roommate. The group consisted of Jake, Anna, Rachel, Sam, Todd, Drew, and Nick, who played poker, while I, Sam's wife, Karen, and Todd's wife, Beth, sat in the living room and watched TV. There used to be a guy named Wes who also played, but he was caught cheating and kicked out of the group. I didn't mind Rachel playing, but like I said, they were her friends, not mine. Karen and Beth were okay. We were actually becoming good friends. The rest were just okay at best. I couldn't imagine myself interacting with any of them by choice. I didn't necessarily dislike them except for Nick. Nick was a complete jerk, and I frankly disliked him. Drew and Nick were loners. Drew was quiet and unassuming and apparently not very good at poker. Nick was loud, obnoxious, and narcissistic. I argued with him more than once and tolerated him only because he was a member of Rachel's poker group, and we only saw him when they played poker. My only real problem with poker night was that it brought out Rachel's extremely competitive side. If she lost, she would be in a bad mood the whole next day. I told her more than once that she was taking it too seriously, but she brushed it off. She'd been trying to make poker night a weekly thing lately, but I really didn't want to spend that much time with these people. Luckily, Karen and Beth felt the same way, so there were no weekly poker nights just yet. One Friday night, we were at Jake and Anna's, and the regular group was playing. It was obviously a bad night for Rachel. Every now and then, I'd come over to see if she wanted something to drink, and she'd always get angry. It was already quite late, past the time they usually stopped, when I heard a noise from the dining room where they were playing. As I walked in, I heard Nick say, "VJNGet was a bet. Don't dodge it." DJKJ, Jake followed him. VDJNJ, you know the rules, Rach. If you don't fulfill the bet, you're out of the group. DJKJ, then Rachel said, VDJNJ, okay, let's get this over with. Now it's my turn. VDJK, VJNJ. What's happening, VJKJ, I asked. VJNJ Rachel lost all her money and gave me the pleasure of the last hand. VJKJ, Nick said with a smile and a gleam in his eye. VJNJ, she lost. Now it's time to pay. Sorry. Rachel won't do this to anyone but me. DJKJ, Nick continued. VDJNJ, guys. She made a bet and lost. These are the rules. DJK. It was then that Rachel decided to begin sealing her destiny. VJNJ, I lost. I have to pay, BJKJ, Rachel said. VDJNJ, no, Rachel, you must be faithful to me. What you want to do is pay a rate that will cheat me, VJKJ. Nick said, justifying my opinion that he was a dork. VDJNJ, you're watching here, so it's not treason. You know what, idiot? Keep your mouth shut. Believe it or not, it's not about you, Rachel. VDJKJ, I intervened. VDJNJ, come on, we're leaving. DJKJ, I said. VDJNJ, DJKJ, Rachel said to me, VDJNJ, I don't want to do this, but I have to. If I don't do this, I'll be kicked out. DJKJ, VDJNJ, I don't care if you get kicked out. I don't care if you never play poker again. DJKJ, I replied as I headed towards her. VJNJ, I said, hey guys, you'll have to help me. DJKJ? Rachel looked at Sam and Todd and tilted her head in my direction. As I moved toward Rachel, Sam and Todd grabbed me from behind. I started to struggle, but Jake intervened and helped them hold me down. VJNJ, you serious idiots? Are you going to hold me while my wife does this in front of me? JKJ, I exclaimed. VJN, listen. JKJ, said Jake. VJNJ, she made a bet and knew where it would lead. She doesn't want to go out, so she pays the rate. DJKJ, then he laughed. VDJN, don't worry, Nick won't last long. He really was in VJKJ. He stepped forward and found himself directly in front of Rachel, who was on her knees. VJNJ, Rachel, do this, and we'll be done. DJKJ, I said, speaking very calmly. G&J, stop being dramatic, Ryan, VJKJ, Rachel said as she began to lean forward. When she did this, I screamed very loudly, VDJ&J, stop for a second. DAKJ. She stopped and looked at me. VDNJ, I just want to be clear. Is everyone okay with this? DJJJ. Silence reigned in the room. Then Nick shuffled forward again and said, VDJ&J, come on, has ruining the mood. DJKJ. Rachel leaned forward. VDJ&J, okay, that's enough. I can't look at it. Let me go, and I'll leave. VDJKJ, I had the beginning of a plan. I thought it was over between me and Rachel, but I needed to get some revenge on this idiot. Rachel let the end of his sentence slide out of her mouth and nodded to the guys holding me. They released me, and I calmly walked towards Rachel. Approaching them, I pretended to be trying to take off my wedding ring. The fingers of my left hand were spread, and the right hand was twisted, trying to remove the wedding ring. Rachel was kneeling to my left with a determined look on her face. Nick was standing to my right, just grinning. Approaching them, I said to Rachel, VDJNG, I told you that if you do this, we're finished. DJKJ. Now I stood next to them and looked at Rachel. The fingers of my left hand were spread out as if I was trying to remove the ring. My right hand clenched into a fist. VDJNJ, you did it anyway, Rachel, and with such an idiot, VDJKJ, I said. After saying the word VDJK, I hit Nick in the nose with the back of my right fist. He immediately raised both hands to cover his face. I immediately turned to the right and punched both hands, covering his bloody face with my left fist. His head fell back, and he lost his balance. Since his jeans and boxers were around his ankles, he fell on his butt and then flat on his back. He landed on the floor between the dining table and a large antique cabinet. I was very angry and continued to improvise. Rachel fell on her butt, and I was now standing at Nick's feet, looking down at him. There was a dining table to my right and an antique wardrobe to my left. The table was quite large. 8 people sat comfortably on it with 3 chairs on each side. The cabinet was huge and must have been at least 6 feet long. The base was about 30 inches high and was oak with a bunch of drawers and doors. The top half sat on the base and was another 40 inches or so higher. It was filled with decorative china, figurines, a few snow globes, and other things they collected. Unfortunately for Nick, Jake was never able to properly attach the top half to the bottom. When I pulled on it, the top half tipped over. While it wasn't my intention to pull the top half on Nick, I liked how it came together. When the cabinet tipped over and landed, it sounded like an explosion. Luckily for Nick, there wasn't enough space between the stand and the table for the cabinet to land on him. Instead, the bottom part remained on the stand, and the top part landed on the dining table. Unfortunately for Nick, everything that was displayed in the antique cabinet slid forward and crashed through the glass doors of the cabinet. Shards of glass rained down on him, then everything inside the cabinet fell into shards of glass. He must have received hundreds of cuts. Fortunately for Nick, he covered his bloody face with his hands to prevent shards of glass from getting into his broken nose or eyes. Unfortunately for Nick, when he fell on his back, his shirt rode up all the way to his stomach, exposing everything from his upper abdomen to the middle of his shins. Since his jeans and boxers were pulled down to his ankles, everything from his upper abdomen to the middle of his shins was exposed. He immediately began bleeding heavily. All this happened in a matter of seconds. Everyone froze and looked with shocked expressions on their faces. I was in improvisation mode, so feigning concern, I walked around the table where his head was and said loudly, VJ, don't touch him. Call an ambulance. JKJ. Having reached his head, I bent down so low that only he could hear me and said, VJ, I hope you bleed, but if not, come back to me later, and we'll talk about it. Just so you know, there's glass everywhere. If I were you, I wouldn't move so much. JKJ. Anna came out of the kitchen saying, VDJNG, the ambulance is on the way. Estimated time of arrival is 5 minutes. JKJJ, VJJNG, maybe call the police. VJKJ. Rachel and I answered at the same time. She said, VDJNG, VJJJ, and I said, absolutely. Rachel wasn't stupid. She knew that if the cops showed up, a report would be drawn up and statements would be taken. Jake was very angry. Dude, you tried to kill him and you destroyed my cabinet. We need to call the police. Well, I didn't actually try to kill him, but I agree that you should call the police. Personally, I'd love to talk to the cops. You three idiots held me down while my wife pleasured another man because she lost a bet. Isn't this like paying for sex now? I don't know if this is true or not, but I will certainly do some research. They will never believe it. Who do you think they're going to believe, Jake? Me or the guy lying here with his pants down who's not married to any of the women here? Maybe I'm wrong. Go and call them. Do what you want. Please, call the police. I'll go outside and meet the ambulance. I walked around the table and headed towards the door. Rachel was now on her knees looking at Nick. I squatted down next to her, and this time I actually took off my wedding ring and threw it into the broken glass next to Nick's head. You know what, Rachel? I don't think I'll need this anymore. If you want, you can dig it out of the glass. I looked at her with tears in my eyes and said, "Cards next to his head? What are these extra cards? Wait, the guy you gave up your marriage for is a cheater? What, are you kidding me? Nick, you're a cheater. You know what, Rachel? I almost said cheater, but then corrected myself. I almost cheated on my husband, and you cheated. I didn't argue about almost changing and really changing. I decided that it would come later." Nick could not speak because of the glass in his hands that covered his face. Now there was blood everywhere. "Stay here, Rachel. I'll go out and meet the ambulance," I said. "They should be here any minute. I'll let you know when they arrive." I walked out the front door, got into my car, and drove away. 2 blocks later, I passed an ambulance that was driving very slowly and was looking up house numbers with a spotlight. I drove past and went home. I entered the house and began to pack my things, expecting the police to show up at any moment. I grabbed a small suitcase and a couple of duffel bags and started throwing things in that I would need over the next few days. As I was zipping up my suitcase, I heard the front door open and Rachel calling out to me, "Ryan, where are you?" I ignored her. Ryan, where are you?" I left the bedroom with 2 duffel bags and a suitcase. "Oh, here you are, Ryan. What are you doing?" "Ryan, you don't have to go anywhere. God, you know VJ." "Oh, I know what you will do, Rachel. How about Jake and Todd, or do you draw the line at married guys, and you actually knelt down instead of paying in cash? By the way, how much was the bet?" "Ryan, stop it. Nick was the only one I was going to do this for, no matter how big the stake. This was the principle. I didn't mean to have sex with him. Besides, you stopped me." "Didn't I stop you? You've already gotten down to business, haven't you?" She ignored the question and tried to change the subject. "I managed to keep them from calling the cops, and I pulled your ring out of the broken glass." "I already said I don't care. I think they should call the police. Hell, I could kill him. Should I just go to the police and confess my crimes to them?" "No, Ryan, bad idea. We'll just pay for what you broke." "To hell with this. I won't give them a dime. When's your next poker night?" "Only in a couple of weeks. Nick won't be invited back, so don't worry." 2 weeks will give us enough time to get over what happened." "Ryan, where are you going?" When she finished her sentence, I was already outside the door. When I got into the car, she was already standing at the front door and shouting something to me. I ignored her and drove away. I drove a few miles, found a motel, and got a room for the night. I turned off my phone and stared at the ceiling all night. I finally fell asleep around 5 o'clock in the morning and slept until 10 o'clock. I got up, showered, then went to the front desk and paid until Wednesday. I turned the phone back on, and there must have been a dozen missed calls from Rachel and another dozen from Karen and Beth. There were also a bunch of messages from Rachel explaining why she had to do what she did and how it meant nothing to us. She regretted that it happened, but still tried to justify it and claimed that it was just a bet. I answered her with only one text in which I suggested forwarding all her messages to her mother and see how she perceives the situation. Then I turned off the phone again. I sat on a park bench for 2 hours, walked around the mall for another hour, then went and sat on another park bench for another hour. Then I went to the supermarket and bought a bunch of junk food. I went back to my motel room and spent the rest of the night eating crap and researching scams on the internet. By 10 o'clock, I was completely exhausted and fell asleep. On Monday morning, I went to work and tried to be productive. My boss once caught me staring into space and finally asked me what the problem was. When I told him that I had serious family problems, he suggested that I take at least a few days off. He told me to call on Wednesday and let him know if I needed time off for the rest of the week. By this time, it was time to call it a day anyway, So I left and decided to stop by the local bar and grill for a couple of beers and some better food than the crap I bought at the supermarket. I didn't really want to talk to anyone, so I went to the back of the restaurant and took a booth. Regardless of what I wanted, suddenly 2 figures appeared next to me, and neither of them was the waitress. "Hey Ryan, do you mind if Karen and I sit down?" I ignored them and took a sip of ice water. "Are you mad at us too? What have we done?" Karen and Beth sat on the other side of the booth, and Beth spoke next. "Ryan, if Karen and I didn't do anything, why are you angry with us? I know you don't really like people playing poker with Rachel, but I thought we were friends." "I also thought we were friends, but you didn't do anything." "Are you too seriously asking me this?" "Well, you didn't do anything," I said as sharply as I could without shouting. "I was held by your husband so that my wife could please another man without my interference." The 2 of you stood there in silence. "What friends?" At one point before she actually started, I looked around and begged for someone to help finish this, and you 2 said nothing. "I didn't think she'd actually do it," Karen said. "I thought it was just a stupid joke." "I couldn't believe she actually started doing this," Beth said. "Now she feels terrible. She's afraid that you will send these messages to her mom." "You won't, will you?" "Not yet, but I will do it if necessary. Everyone knows how bad that situation was. We talked about this after you left and the ambulance took Nick away. Jake and Anna said they won't call the police. You'll just have to pay," Karen explained. "Listen to me, Karen. I won't pay anyone anything. It is my understanding that Jake and Anna were instrumental in alleviating what had apparently become a gambling problem for Rachel. Now, I don't blame them for her weakness, but Anna stood there and watched, and Jake really helped hold me back while Rachel ruined her marriage so she wouldn't get kicked out of the poker group," I clarified. "Ryan, she's just a wreck. Please try to forgive her," Karen begged. "I'm not sure she wants forgiveness. She doesn't think she did anything wrong. I think she wants an apology from me for stopping her from paying her bet," I retorted. Suddenly, Beth seemed to have an epiphany. "What if we balance the scales? What if you go out and find a girl who will please you?" I answered her very slowly and deliberately, as if I were talking to a child. "Think about it. We were in a room presumably with our friends. Then those same friends held me back so she could pay off the bet. Now, to balance the scales, I must find a woman who will give me pleasure. So basically, I humiliate myself in front of all her friends, and she just hears that I got even. The vision of her on her knees is burned into my brain. On the other hand, she may not even believe me when I say that I got even. She can just pretend I didn't do it. I can't do that. I saw it, please. There has to be a way to end this. I hate seeing my friends suffer." "Karen, you don't want to see me hurt, but were you okay with how hurt I was on Friday? You stood there while all this happened. I was in pain, but you didn't pay attention to it. Friends don't do that. We are not friends. In my opinion, these 2 were as guilty as anyone else. I was devising a plan for a little payback. I just had to set the hook. I have no doubt that if someone had said something, this would not have happened. You could say something to your husbands. It might have caused a fight, but it might have saved my marriage. It's time to give them some hope. I just don't know if there's a way to balance the scales, as you say. I'm not necessarily against the idea. I just don't see how... What if one of us does it?" I looked at Beth for about 10 seconds. "What if it's both of you?" "Wait, you want us to balance the scales?" Karen asked. "I can't do this. Sam will kill me if he finds out," Beth objected. "Of course I understand," I said sarcastically. "The man who held me while my wife cheated on me. I understand everything clearly." "I'll do it," Beth said suddenly. We both looked at her in surprise. "You're right. It's partly our fault. I can't do this, and it's unfair of you to put me in this position, Ryan. If Beth is willing to help, that should be enough," Karen said, her voice wavering. "No," I answered. "Both of you were in the room when it happened. I think this is part of the negotiations. I don't want balance. I need the scales to tip in my favor." Karen sat there for about 2 minutes, thinking. The longer she did this, the more convinced I became that I could handle it. "If we do this, will you forgive Rachel?" she finally asked. "If you don't do this, I won't even think about it," I replied. "You won't tell Sam?" she pressed. "I won't say a word," I assured her. Actually, it wasn't a lie. I wasn't going to tell him this in words. "I have a motel room until Wednesday morning. I plan to hold out until the weekend, and then decide whether to return home or find my own place. God, I can't believe this is happening, Karen said. Welcome to my world, I said sarcastically. Look, if it's that terrible for you, just forget about it. That's not the point, Ryan. I like you, and you're a nice guy. If I weren't married, I'd be with you in a heartbeat. But I'm married, and you're making me cheat on my husband. Karen, I'm not forcing you to do anything, I said. I know. Okay, if it helps you get over what my husband did, then I'll do it. Either way, it's his fault. If he wasn't involved, I wouldn't be in this situation. As for me, she could explain it any way she wanted. It would help me get back at her husband, so I didn't care. Okay, meet me tomorrow evening in my room at 6 o'clock. I'll bring something to eat and some wine, I instructed. Both women got up from the table and walked away, talking to each other. They looked excited about tomorrow night, and didn't seem upset. Am I the only one who takes marriage vows seriously, I pondered? I know what you're thinking. Here I am, a married guy, planning to date 2 married women while talking about the sanctity of marriage. As for me, she cheated on me by doing this. She insulted and humiliated me. She has already annulled our marriage. I no longer obeyed the vows. Everything was over except the paperwork and the women I was going to meet. They and their husbands were partially responsible, so to hell with them. You'll never understand those people whose spouses cheat, but they intend to follow the sanctity of marriage rules. What's good for the goose is my motto. I understand that she did not intend to cheat on me, but it was not difficult for her to accept, deciding to do this when her precious place in the poker group was on the line. Yes, she needs help with her gambling problem. The problem is that she won't get help until she hits rock bottom. Perhaps divorce is rock bottom. The next day, Tuesday, I returned to my house, making sure that Rachel was not there, and went in to get some new things. It was difficult to walk through my house, see my life everywhere, and know that it would no longer be the same. Every time I got sentimental, I imagined her kneeling in front of Nick. The angry emotions were still strong, so I ended up not taking anything that could remind me of her. I took some of my electronics, my laptop, my iPad, my camera, some basic tools, and some clothes. I decided that I would start looking for an apartment after I left and come back later for the rest of my things. I didn't really want that much. I left the house and went apartment hunting. I found an inexpensive furnished 1-bedroom apartment that I could rent month to month. I could move any time after Saturday. After signing the agreement, I went to lunch and got ready to meet the girls. I went to Best Buy and bought an Apple SD card reader and some SD cards. I also bought the cheapest color printer they had that printed wirelessly. Then I went to a liquor store and bought a couple of bottles of wine that I knew Karen and Beth liked. I went back to the motel room and stacked all my things in the room, so it looked cluttered, and then set up the 35mm camera so it had a clear view of the bed. Since the room looked cluttered, the camera was not very visible. At 5:30, I ordered some appetizers from a local restaurant, and they arrived just before 6 o'clock. At 6:15, there was a soft knock on the door. I looked through the peephole to make sure they were the girls and not some angry husbands. I wasn't afraid of their husbands at all. I just didn't want to be caught off guard again. I walked over and turned on the camera to record video. I invited the girls in and offered them wine. At first they refused, but soon decided that a little liquid courage wouldn't hurt. Girls, we shouldn't do this. We can just drink wine and eat and just hang out. You both know that I will never force you to do anything you don't want to do, I reassured them. I know, Ryan, Beth said. You're such a nice guy. It's a shame Todd isn't as good as you. Rachel really hit the jackpot. Karen and I have been talking about this since we left you yesterday. You were right. We failed you, and we kept our mouths shut. Our inaction was action. I'm really sorry we did this. Yes, I appreciate it. I just would like to know what I did wrong. What the hell do you mean? What did you do wrong? Karen asked. I find it hard to believe that Rachel made such a decision spontaneously. If she wanted to do it with me there, she should have done it earlier when I wasn't there. I would just like to know what I did wrong to make her think she could do this. Ryan, I sincerely believe that nothing like this ever happened before Friday. It's impossible to keep this a secret. It could come out. It always comes out, Karen assured me. She didn't know how true this was, I muttered. Okay, stud, Beth began. At the risk of seeming too impatient, I'll go first. Come to the bed and stand. I did what she said, and she took her place in front of me. Okay, I'll undress you. You must stand still, no hands. I want to do this myself, she said. Karen sat down in the office chair next to the desk and smiled widely. It made me wonder if these two had done something like this before. Karen was in the perfect spot to capture us all on video. Amazing, Beth. Simply amazing, I said. Karen, you'll have to give me a few minutes to recharge the batteries, Beth said. We sat down, ate some of the food we had brought, and drank some more wine. While we ate, we talked again about what happened after I left Jake and Annis on Friday night. Beth went first. Well, you were there when Rachel saw the cards on the floor near Nick's shoulder and accused him of cheating. At first, he couldn't even speak due to all the glass falling on him. He was afraid that the glass on his hands would get into his broken nose or mouth. Karen took her turn. You should have seen his face when the ambulance arrived, which took a few minutes longer than it should have. They were able to remove his hands from his face. He looked terrible. By the way, what happened to "I'll go meet the ambulance?" Karen asked with a smile on her face and a voice that was supposed to imitate me. I answered. I must have forgotten. Unfortunately, he still survived. Karen shuddered. Well, he started telling everyone that he didn't cheat and that Rachel owes him a bet, and he's going to kick your ass, blah, blah, blah. You should have seen all this blood, Beth said. There was blood everywhere. The ambulance people didn't even try to remove him. They just covered him up and took him away, Karen added. Karen took the initiative into her own hands. Rachel said she would never pay their bet unless he proved he didn't cheat. Here I interrupted Karen. So if Nick proves that he didn't cheat, she will still pay? The girls fell silent with a significant pause. Then Karen spoke again. I'm pretty sure there's no need to worry about anything happening at the moment. Are you absolutely sure? As I already said, Nick received hundreds of cuts all over his body. Most were tiny cuts, but a few required stitches. He actually had 2 pretty serious cuts on his stomach that needed stitching. He stayed in the hospital until Monday, when all the glass was removed from him. Jake went to the hospital and talked to him, Beth spoke. He was so angry. He said he would kick your ass and then not only get a bet from Rachel, but have a night with her right in front of you. Karen intervened again. I'm pretty sure Nick will never be allowed back in since he was caught cheating. However, Jake is also angry with you. He thinks you'll have to pay for the curio cabinet, and he's angry because his homeowner's insurance will have to pay the hospital bill. He also wants you to pay for all the things in the closet that are broken, Karen relayed. Karen, pass on my message. Tell Jake and Anna that I will only pay 10 cents if the judge tells me to. There will be court documents and statements to make this happen. My statement would be as if I discovered a full-blown orgy was going on, and when I tried to stop my wife from participating, I was illegally restrained by Jake, Sam, and Todd. My statement will include the names of all participants and everyone who was there. I'll make sure all the neighbors get copies, as well as the neighbors of everyone who was there. I will make sure family, friends, and work colleagues also receive copies. I'll make sure every church anyone attends gets a copy as well. And if I can, I'll contact Oprah and tell the world about it, I declared. We sat in silence for about 30 seconds. Suddenly, Karen blurted out, Okay, it's my turn, let's go. Okay, but I want you both without clothes, too. We don't have to be without clothes for this, Beth laughed. To hell with it, said Karen. We've come this far. What difference does it make? After about 5 minutes, I felt it was coming to an end when Karen said, Okay, it should have been my turn. Beth, get down so I can join. Beth giggled and rolled to the side, and Karen took her place. She eventually rolled off and lay on her back next to me. So, I said, have you done this before? We've had our moments. You know we went to college together, right? Karen answered. Well, we shared once or twice, Beth laughed. That's right, Karen, Beth said. 1 or 2 times, 100. Karen laughed too, and then said, Okay, it was fun, but I have to go. Ryan, I hope this tips the scales in your favor. Please call me tomorrow and let me know what you think. I really hope you two can make it through this. I don't want to lose you as friends. Beth looked at me and said, Ryan, we are very sorry that we didn't say anything when everything was happening. Please call me tomorrow so we can talk. If you want to talk later, call me anytime. Just so we're clear, this was probably the only way. Probably, Karen asked. Come on, Karen. That's all that's been talked about since last night. You know you'll do it again. We just have to be a lot more careful than doing it in front of everyone while playing poker. Okay, I laughed. We'll talk tomorrow someday. I'll call you. The girls left and I got to work with the video I made. I edited it mostly down to the hot parts, then printed out some still photos that were very compromising of both women. Then I transferred the edited video to the remaining SD cards and made 9 identical envelopes. Each envelope contained an SD card and several very explicit photos of the girls. Although it would have been pretty obvious to anyone who knew us, I cropped the photos and blurred the video so my face wouldn't be visible. I went to bed and fell asleep instantly. On Wednesday, I woke up early, turned my phone back on, and saw another dozen calls and messages from Rachel. I didn't listen to or read them, but I didn't delete them either. I called my boss and told him I was going to take the rest of the week off. Then after Rachel left for work, I came home and packed up more of my tools and personal items. During lunch, Rachel called me again. This time I answered the call with a very short, "What?" This caught her off guard, and it took her a few seconds to realize that I had actually answered the phone. "Oh my God, Ryan, don't hang up. Where are you, Ryan? We need to talk. We can get through this. Please talk to me. Where did you stop? Please come home so we can work on ending this. Please," she pleaded. At that moment, I interrupted her. "Rachel, shut up and listen for a minute. We'll meet on Saturday. I'll arrive at 6 p.m. Let everyone who was with Jake and Anna be there, except your boyfriend. If I see him there, I'll kick his ass again." "He's not my boyfriend, Ryan. Besides, he's really not in shape to go out right now." "Saturday, 6 o'clock. This is not a party. This is a discussion. You and all your friends can try to convince me why I shouldn't divorce you. I haven't listened to your messages, so be prepared for what you have to say. Tell your friends not to be late." "Ryan, please don't ruin our marriage over a stupid bet." "When is the next poker night?" Rachel asked. "I'm not sure. Maybe a few more weeks. You don't have to come if you don't want to. See you on Saturday," I replied. She just didn't understand. She thought the whole problem was that I was overreacting to what she simply knew was her duty. She just didn't see the big picture. She honestly didn't see that she had a problem. It was more important to her to honor the poker bet than her marriage vows. She hasn't hit rock bottom yet. The rest of the week passed relatively calmly. I went to Walmart and bought things I would need in my apartment for the bathroom, kitchen, and bedroom. I bought a lot more stuff than I expected to. I stopped at a motel for the night. I spent my nights researching divorce. We didn't have children. We could sell the house and get $55,000 each after the sale. We had little debt and earned about the same. This should be relatively easy. On Saturday afternoon, I sent Rachel a message asking her to text me when everyone was there. I didn't want to sit in awkward silence, waiting for someone to show up or having to rehash everything if someone was late. At 5:45, she sent me a message that everyone was already in place and waiting in the dining room. At 5:55, I rang the doorbell of my house. "Honey, this is your house. You don't need to ring the doorbell," Rachel said, opening the door. "As you say," I answered, walking past her. When I entered the dining room, I was carrying a small duffel bag filled with envelopes. All the furniture in our dining room was given to us by Grandma. The table was really big for 10 people, 4 chairs on each side and 1 on each end. When I entered the dining room, there were 3 empty seats next to me. Jake was sitting at the far right. Anna was sitting on the left with her back to me. To her left were 3 empty seats. To Jake's right, facing me, sat Sam, then Todd, then Karen, then Beth. To the left, at the head of the table, sat Drew. Rachel walked past me and sat in the middle of the 3 empty seats, hoping to get me to sit next to her. I went to the left end of the table where Drew was sitting and said, "My place. Rachel told me you can sit next to her." "Let's bet on that ill sit here. It might lead to something," I remarked. "Rachel, put your phone on record. I have a feeling you'll need it someday," I added. Without saying a word, Drew stood up and sat on the other side of Rachel. There was an empty seat to my right, and I placed my gym bag on it. Rachel launched the recording app on her iPhone and placed it on the table. I sat down and looked around the table. After an awkward silence, I said, "Okay, we all know why we're here. I'm thinking of divorcing Rachel. If you care, convince me not to do this. Drew, why don't you go first?" Look, Ryan, I'm probably the wrong guy to ask. My wife cheated on me, and we got divorced because of it, Drew replied. Thank you, Drew. I appreciate your honesty. Perhaps I will have questions later, I said, looking around at those sitting at the table. What about you, Jake? What do you think? It's not a problem for me. She loves you, and she's beautiful. Do you think she was a wholly untouchable when you met her? Jake responded. No, I answered, but I expected her to become a saint after we met. Would you mind if Anna pleasured other guys? Jake was silent, and Anna fidgeted in her seat. Being the sarcastic jerk that I am, and completely jokingly, I said, So, how long have you two been openly cheating on each other? Anna blushed, and everyone's jaws dropped except Jake's. Jake looked at me like he wanted to kill me, but he didn't deny it. Rachel blurted out, Anna, really? Anna suddenly had a truth-telling attack back. We only did this 3 times. I don't like it. But Jake says we should continue. But I want to stop. I hate this. Okay, Anna, I said calmly. How about you and Rachel talk about this later? You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. You know what? And you are Jake? Jake yelled. I told Rachel when she started dating you, and you couldn't play poker, that you were a loser and that she should leave you. She should have left you a long time ago. You destroyed thousands of dollars worth of my stuff because your wife did the right thing and paid the bet. Maybe I should just destroy everything here, Jake continued. Come on, I answered calmly. All this was given to your friend Rachel by her grandmother. All this means nothing to me. He sat down again, breathing heavily and looking at me like a dagger. Sam, Todd, would any of you want to try listening? I began. None of us want our friends to get divorced. I mean, you guys have been our friends for years, Sam started, but I cut him off. No, Sam, you were not friends with us. You're friends with Rachel, and I'm her husband. But you were friends with my wife, I said. I thought so, I continued, and then she stood silently while you 3 held me down, and my wife knelt in front of the other guy. But Karen didn't do anything. It was us. I glanced at Karen and Beth, who were looking at the table. I don't think this conversation went the way they hoped. Answer me, Sam. You walk into a bar and see your friend Todd's wife in the far corner, on her knees in front of another guy. What are you doing? Do you call Todd and hope he makes it on time? Are you getting between them to keep her from doing anything? Well, how about you go to the bar and see Todd in the far corner? What are you doing? Are you calling Beth? You see, I already know the answer to all these questions. If it's Todd's wife on her knees, you step in and get her out of there and tell Todd. If Todd is going to buy a Hummer, you sit down and watch, and maybe join in. Beth will never find out from you because Todd is your friend, and Beth is your friend's wife. What about you, Todd? Are you saying I'm exaggerating? Todd was silent. You see, the problem is that Rachel is your friend, and I'm not. If Rachel attacks me, you won't care because I'm your friend's husband. I'm not your friend. If I had not entered this room, none of you would have said a word to me. You would all think to yourself, okay, the seal is broken. Next time, I will be the one to make a bet with her. I looked at Rachel. When did you stop respecting me? What? Never. I respect you more than any other person I've ever known, Rachel replied meekly. When did I first tell you that this was normal? Well, I never said so, she answered. How many times did this happen before last week? Never. Why are you so shocked by this question? Why should I trust you? If I hadn't seen it happen, would you have told me? Would you wait until we got home and say, Hey, honey, did a funny thing happen at the card game this evening? I glanced at Todd and Sam. What do you think you would do if you had to watch your wives have a night with another man? They grinned, looked at each other, and then turned to me. Does she get paid for this? Asked Sam. Beth's jaw dropped. Now, wanting to be left behind, Todd decided to add his own comment. Will she learn anything new? I just smiled. So when's the next poker game? They muttered something to each other for a long time. Then Todd asked, Do you want to come? No, I said. When's the next poker game, Rachel? I do not know why you just said that you won't come again, but you keep asking when the next time will be. Okay, I've had enough. Here it is. I took my gym bag and took out all the envelopes. I was going to break up a couple of marriages tonight, but you know what? I think they're already doomed. I put the envelopes back in the bag and put it back. Rachel, you ripped my heart out, and you actually asked your friends to hold me while you did it, and you still don't think you did anything wrong. You not only cheated on me, but also humiliated me without a second thought. Your place in the poker group is clearly more important to you than me. The worst thing, Rachel, is that these people are not your friends. True friends would never do this to you and would never allow you to do this to themselves. Rachel began to intervene. No, 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 darling, you are the most important. Calm down, Rachel. Now it's my turn, I interrupted. You didn't even apologize for it. All you did was try to make me understand how you should pay your debts. You kept telling me that we had to get through this, but you never even admitted that you did anything wrong. Even after all this, you still plan to continue going to poker nights. If you're willing to bet on intimate favors while I'm there, what are you willing to bet on when I'm not there? Am I going to raise someone else's child just because you lost a bet and someone else knocks you up? We're done. You have a gambling problem. Call for help. I'll talk to a lawyer on Monday. If you want to hire a lawyer, that's fine. As far as I'm concerned, you can have almost anything, including your dumb friends. What? Todd said. You, Todd, Beth said, surprising everyone. Everything he said is true. You people are trashing his marriage to Rachel for your own amusement. He was just about to spit in your face, saying I had sex with him, and I don't know why he didn't. You know I did it, Ryan said. Will you take me with you? I mean, could you give me a ride? Another awkward silence followed for about 10 seconds. Then Karen spoke. You know what, Todd? Ask it. Karen, I'm tired of being the only one responsible in this relationship. Ryan's right. You don't even sit next to me. Before all this happened, Ryan idolized her. I always wanted you to treat me the way he treated her. This is the first time I've seen them not sit together, touch each other, or hold hands. It really pisses me off that you helped this happen. Ryan, she continued, last Friday when it happened, I was just as shocked as you were. I honestly thought it was some kind of joke because I thought I knew how much she loved you. I'm really sorry I didn't say anything then, but maybe it's better for you to find out now while you don't have children. Could you give me a ride too? We left the house with Rachel sobbing uncontrollably, Jake and Anna arguing about the swinging, and Sam and Todd telling their wives, if you don't come home today, don't come home at all. Both girls walked out with their middle fingers in the air. I took Beth and Karen to Beth's parents' house and returned to my motel. I finished off the alcohol that was left in the room and ate the remaining junk food. I finally passed out around midnight. The divorce went without any problems. We sold the house, and she put all the furniture into storage. I got everything I wanted from a house that, oddly enough, was not big. Beth and Karen separated from their husbands, and the three of us remained friends with benefits. I haven't heard anything from Rachel. Actually, I was disappointed. I thought she would fight harder and maybe try to force counseling. Obviously, I was right that marriage never meant as much to her as it did to me. I never really connected with either Beth or Karen on a romantic level, but the three of us became very close. A year after the infamous night, I was sitting in the bar where Rachel and I went on special occasions. The divorce took place 4 months ago. I sat feeling sorry for myself and missing Rachel. As I sat there, sipping my beer and staring at the wall, I felt a presence behind me. I continued to stare at the wall, hoping that whoever it was would go away. I really didn't want to talk and was hoping they would just leave if I didn't react. Is this seat taken? I looked, lowered my head, and stared into my beer. No, no, sit down. Such a nice guy like you. I'm surprised you're here alone. Well, I have 2 wonderful friends that I usually hang out with, but they're on a double date. Yes, I also thought that I had wonderful friends. It turns out my friends weren't so amazing after all. I happened to run into a couple of girls who said there would be a hot, lonely guy with a really kind heart sitting alone here in this bar. I decided that I would come here and introduce myself. I'm Kate. I chuckled and played along. Nice to meet you, Kate. I'm Ryan. Why are you here alone? Are you celebrating something? No, I really have nothing to celebrate. I'm a failure in relationships. I couldn't stop my husband from cheating, so I divorced him. My 2 best friends are hanging out with other guys. What about you? Yes, perhaps I'm a failure too. I literally had the best girlfriend in the world who loved me with all her heart, and I hurt her in the worst way I could. I cheated on her. She divorced me. Did she do the right thing for her or for me? Let's start with her. I'm not sure. I guess you'll have to ask her. People I talk to say she is unhappy all the time. Honestly, what about you? It is very difficult. When she divorced me, the darkest period of my life began. It made me look at myself very closely. I didn't like what I saw. I started counseling for addiction and have continued to do so ever since. My amazing husband saw this happening and tried to warn me, but I didn't believe him. I think in this regard, divorce was inevitable. My addiction would eventually somehow kill his love for me. I never stopped loving you, Kate. I just couldn't. I couldn't. I know, Ryan, I understand. First of all, it's so nice to hear you call me Kate again and not Rachel. Look, I came here to explain my behavior and assure you that you are not to blame for anything. I know you already know this, but I just felt the need to tell you this myself. That Friday night at poker, I just knew I was going to win this hand. When I didn't, I was shocked but decided to pay the rate. I didn't even think about it as intimate or cheating. It was like a handshake. I was afraid that they would kick me out of the group. I didn't see it as a bet on my marriage because I never thought you'd leave me. It wasn't even a consideration. I thought that you would be angry, but in the end you would forgive me because it was my duty. I thought you would understand that I must keep my word. Honestly, I didn't think it was anything big. Now I see it as the most vile, disgusting, offensive thing that I have ever done to a person. At the time, I couldn't believe you were acting so irrationally. When I started the consultation, the doctor asked what happened. When I told her about the fight and how you made me write it all down, she called you a genius. After listening, she said that she was surprised that our marriage had lasted so long. She also explained why you kept asking when the next poker night was. Just so you know, there were no more poker nights. I haven't picked up a deck of cards since that night, and I'll never pick it up again. I haven't spoken to any of these guys since 2 weeks after our fight. How is Anna doing? She is all right. She and Jake also divorced. It turned out that he was cruel, and she was too embarrassed to say anything about it. Eventually, she decided to leave him. She's dating a guy from work. Ryan, you were right about everything. I put this stupid poker group above everything else. I loved you with all my heart, and I knew that you loved me too. So I just knew that you would understand and be okay with it. If these people were truly my friends, they would never have let it get this far. I just couldn't help it. I needed to be part of this group. I let that Nick do what he did, and I feel disgusted with myself. If you hadn't done what you did, I can only imagine what these games would have become. I'm so sorry for everything I put you through. I sincerely wish you the best life. You deserve it. I would really like to be friends with you, but I understand if you don't want to. I'll leave now before I start crying like a little girl. Call me Kate. I stood up and walked towards the door. Hey, Kate. She stopped but didn't turn around. Yes, Ryan? Have you already had dinner? I saw her shoulders shaking with tears. No, Ryan, not yet. She didn't turn around. I stood up, walked up to her, put my arm around her shoulders, pulled her head to my shoulder, and led her to the door. Let's go have a proper dinner, Kate. Kate and I started dating again, and a few months later, we moved back in together. 9 months later, we got married again by a justice of the peace on our previous wedding anniversary. We decided it would be easier to use the same date as before. Kate remained true to her word and gave up gambling completely. She never bets on anything, even as a joke. I know some will say, once a cheater, always a cheater. I don't believe this applies to Kate. I believe her addiction caused her to do things she wouldn't normally do. I looked at the intention behind her actions. Her goal was not to humiliate me or find a lover. She fulfilled her addiction. The guys in the poker group are still friends with each other, except for Drew, and tell anyone who will listen that they left their wives. I never heard from Nick. Apparently, he didn't want to discuss the topic any further. Last I heard, he left town. Kate and I are still friends with Anna, Karen, and Beth. Anna also quit playing poker. They will all become our son's godmothers. Thank you for watching this intense story about betrayal and redemption. What would you do if you were in Ryan's shoes? Would you forgive and move forward, or would you walk away? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more unbelievable stories. See you in the next video.